Welcome back. Let's continue with our CSS grid tutorials. So once again, this is what we are building while we are learning CSS grid. Now, this is a tutorial I found on CSS grid. It's available on CSS-Tricks.com. So I'm going to leave a description to it a link to it in the description below. And I will highly encourage you to check it out because it goes deeper and explains some of the concepts for CSS grid. So I highly encourage that you check it out as well. All right, so let's continue. For step 31, what we want to do is we want to create an A selector to select all our links. And then let's give it a text decoration. The value of text decoration is going to be none. So that's going to take the underline away from it, as you can see. Next up, let's also add a color property to it, and let's set it also to lining as well, so that it will match the rest of the text on our page. Now, we are ready to start putting together the grid layout. So, CSS grid offers a two-dimensional grid-based layout and allows you to center items both horizontally and vertically while still retaining control to do things like overlap elements. Once again, I will highly encourage you to check out this tutorial or article on CSS-Tricks. Okay. So for us to turn an element into a grid container, what we want to do is to give it a display of grid. So in this case, we want to turn our main element into a grid container. So we first select main, and then let's give it a display of grid. It's the same way as you do flex. You say display flex. For grid, you say display, and you give it a value of grid. Okay. Now, you can style the layout of your grid. CSS grid is similar to Flexbox, like I was saying, in that it has a special property for both the parent and child elements. Okay. So in this case, your parent element is the main element. So you set the content to have a 3-column layout. So we want to set the content to have a 3-column layout. So as you can see, this have a 3-column layout. So the way we are going to do that is to say grid template columns. Okay, grid templates columns, and then we'll give it the value of the 3 columns. So the first is going to be 1 FR, 94 rem, and then 1 FR. So what this means is that it's going to take the children of the main content and then share the space on the page in 3. So the middle element will have 94 rem. Then whatever space that's remaining after that will be shared among the first and third child elements. Okay. So as you can see here, this will create 3 columns where the middle column is 94 rem wide, and then the first and last columns are both 1 fraction of the remaining space in the grid container. Okay. So now let's use something called the min-max function to make the column responsive on any device. So the min-max function is going to take 2 arguments. The first will be the minimum value, and the second will be the maximum value. These values could be a length percentage FR, which is fraction, or even a keyword like max content. Okay, so now wrap each of your already defined values for the grid template columns in a min-max function. So first, let's say min-max for the first one, let me just copy this. Okay. All right. Now, using each value as the second argument, the first argument should be 2rem, main content, and 2rem respectively. So the first one will have a first value of 2rem. This one will have main content. And then finally, this will have a 2rem value respectively. Okay. So as you can see, we have a 3-column layout here, although it's a mess at the moment, but we will clean it up as we progress. All right, now let's add space between rows in the grid layout, and we can do so using what is called the row gap property. So we say row gap property. Let's give it a value of 3rem. And then your magazine will have 3 primary sections. You already set the layout, the overall layout in the main row, but you can adjust the placement in the child rows as well. So one option is to use grade column property, which is shorthand for grade column start and grade column end. So the grade column property tells the grade item which grade line to start and end at. Okay, so let's create a heading rule. We'll say heading. Let's do grade column property. Now let's give it a value of 2/3. Okay, so this will tell the heading element to start at grade line of 2 and end at grade line of 3. Okay. Now, once again, if all of these are not clear to you, I highly encourage, like I said earlier, for you to check out this article here, which explains a lot of the concepts into much details. All right, so let's continue with a text selector. We'll give it a grade column of 2/3. Right. Now, for additional control over the layout of your content, you can have a CSS grid within a CSS grid. Okay, so we can say this heading, which is within our overall main grid container, we can also turn it into a grid container as well by giving it a display property of grid. Now that you can now style the contents of the heading element with CSS grid. So the CSS repeat function is used to repeat a value rather than writing it out manually, and it's helpful for grid layouts. So for example, setting the grid template columns property to repeat 200 pixels will create 20 columns each with a width of 200 pixels. So let's give the heading element a grid template columns property and set it to repeat. We'll say 1FR. Now finally, we are going to look at giving the heading selector a row gap property. So we'll say row gap and let's set it to 1.5 rem. Okay. All right, so we've already looked at 31 to 40, so we are going to end it here. And for the next one, we are going to look at 41 all the way to 50. All right, so see you in the next one.